Pinball Hunter D, Special Win Bit by Justin M. Bailey. Chapter 2, Werecat's Lucky Charms. 2 hours and 38 minutes later, Damon's midnight shift ended as Butler, the janitor, a janitor whose last name just so happened to be Butler, gave the lobby its usual morning shine. For perhaps the millionth time, Susan, Damon's 400-pound morning shift release, was late again.
Sorry, Damon, but you know how traffic is this time of morning.
I know that there virtually is none at this time of morning, Damon responded rather coldly, but Susan only seemed to smugly laugh it off. Normally, such a thing would wind Damon up to no end. Was there anything worse than bad manners? But seeing as how Damon was going to get a free pin today, and on this particular day, Damon could easily smell a very large, growing, metastasizing brain tumor within that fat skull of hers. So Damon saw no reason to cause a fuss, because clearly Susan's truancy would no longer be a problem for much longer. Well, someone won't have to worry about Christmas shopping this year. As the filthy sun peeked its way over the majestic Adirondack Mountains, Damon got into his large white Mercedes van, parked at the edge of the hotel parking lot, which most of the locals thought he lived in, but he really didn't. There was no bed inside for one, only straps, moving blankets, restraints, and some duct tape, most of which was used for the moving of pinball machines. Mostly. Damon started his van and turned on some NPR classical music, or as he used to call it back in the day, just music. Damon didn't live far from the hotel at all, driving up the main tourist strip, and though the van's tinted windows and AC were most certainly helping, Damon could already feel the morning sun already beginning to work its anything but black magic on him, ultravioletly beating down on him along with the rest of the non-blood imbibing residents. Soon Damon would undeniably feel as if someone had injected liquid hangover into him, but he highly doubted it would be nearly as bad as the hangover last night's wedding party was about to wake up to. Not far from Route 9, past the last of the cheap motels, Damon turned an old right onto Old Trout Road, kicking up some dirt on what was practically his own private and unpaved gravelly path. Leading to what had easily become the most luxurious digs he had allowed himself to dwell in for quite some time indeed. Though he would one day be very sad to say goodbye to it indeed, Damon's current residence and pinball haunt was nothing less than a magnificent white brick carriage house that had once been converted into something of a small mansion in its own right. A little further back on the property, there had once in fact been a very large mansion indeed, but that was before the whole thing had burned down some 90 years ago. Back then, it was the roaring 20s, and the original owner was something of a bootlegger. One day, his entire basement gin mill had caught ablaze with explosive fanfare, and after that, the owner must have figured that since he owned 3 Fords, a Rolls Royce, and virtually no horses whatsoever anymore, why not simply convert his old white brick carriage house into something of a modest mansion itself? He had even converted the old mansion's basement into something of a massive-sized, almost unfathomably elegant, H-shaped Olympian swimming pool. Damon could almost imagine all the parties back then. All the flappers, singing, dancing, swimming, fucking, and maybe getting a coat hanger abortion or two the next day, which Damon always found to be beyond repulsive and disgusting. Back in Damon's day, they didn't shove rods of metal up there. Back in Damon's day, they just used lemon slices for such things. Lemon slices used to be famous for a whole lot more than just preventing scurvy. Why anyone in their right mind would pick a metal rod over a piece of fruit to put up there was beyond Damon, and it should be beyond you too. But now the massive H-shaped party pool was nothing more than a labyrinth of overgrown moss, weeds, and decay. A good place to drop a body, Damon supposed. If he never got around to it, he hoped Chekhov would forgive him. Damon pulled up and parked his van under the shady willow tree out front. If Damon didn't get inside quick and get a glass of water in him, he did drink things other than blood. Gatorade, for one. Blood red Gatorade. He would start to feel like he was having hangover with a touch of the flu. But first he needed to welcome who had easily become his bestest friend ever these past 15 months. And not just because he was the exact opposite of a certain Werecat. Jimbo! Damon shouted at the large black and white Akita, running at him coming from the doggy door located at the rear. Jimbo, you dirty no-good Akita! Damon exclaimed. Always thinking you're better than me, but you're not better than me. Get over here, you fluffy son of a, he said while his overexcited Akita in a panicked fashion jumped and kissed him. Few things would ever live beyond mankind's love of scapegoats, human sacrifice, and their love of secretly making fun of crippled people behind their crippled backs, more than their love for their furry friends, and Damon was no exception to this. Jimbo, you mother cusser, Damon shouted while snuggling his massive jumping Nihonjin beast. Some unknown and still at large jackhole had actually broken into Damon's house while he was sleeping during the day some 15 months back, and ever since Damon had kennel rescued and kept around his fluffy enforcer. But this morning, the fluffy enforcer most certainly seemed extra concerned about something indeed. I know, Jimbo, I know, Damon said, thinking it had to be something to do with Ash Lviv. How could it not have something to do with Ash? I know. We got a werecat in the house, buddy. Did she forget to feed you again? And by forget, Damon meant deliberately and repeatedly, but Jimbo barked as if it was something more than just a mere forgotten bowl of chow or two. Look, buddy, we've been over this. I only speak wolf, rat, and bat, Damon said. And sometimes some Mormon. But Jimbo did not look assuaged by this at all. Seeing he was getting nowhere by this, Damon soon wrestled out of his pocket a short rib bone, left over from last night's catering event, along with some massive oversized keys that just screamed medieval madness to you. Damon tossed the bone out towards the old flapper pool, and at least for a moment this was enough to make Jimbo the Akita dog forget about the matter entirely. Damon opened his door while entering his domicile, while leaving the main white door open behind him, as the light screen door slammed behind. Damon took off his work shoes and black shirt. Ash Lviv? Damon tried. Ash Lviv, you awake or asleep? Which was rhetorical at best. After all, in werecat form, she was 95% most likely awake. And if you knew anything about werecats whatsoever, you would know that werecats were in werecat form 95% of the time. For those of you not down or who have never read up on werecats before, something that the author totally did not just make up for this book, the first thing you need to know about them is that they are some of the crankiest, most miserable creatures in all of existence. And not just because Noah had all but forgotten to put them on the ark back in the day, but mostly because, unlike the much more famous and well-known werewolves and garus even, unlike werewolves, werecats did not turn into werecats every full moon, but rather the exact opposite. Werecats only turned back into human form during the full moon, a few days before and a little after, and that was it. Which meant that for the majority of their months and therefore years and years and years and years, most of the time anyone who had ever been unlucky enough to get bitten/fondled by a werecat had to spend the majority of their time trapped in werecat form, constantly covered from head to toe in fur, with their own set of whiskers and neko paws, which made going outside most of the time pretty improbable. And, were this not bad enough, Ash Lviv Delago was an especially disgruntled and grumpy werecat indeed, because Damon Hunter's place was virtually the last place on terra firma she had left to go on terra firma. And this was almost entirely because Damon had once frankly led and gotten just about every single creature either of them ever knew brutally killed in a futile attempt to save the rest of the normal and boring terra firma world from a dark cosmic plant-based hell being with a love of top hats and prostitute flesh that was simply known as Zool. Alan Zool. Well, frankly that, and truth be told, she might have also lost all her money playing an unspeakable amount of scratch tickets, so there was that too. New York Lotto! Hey, you're a dumbass. Thanks for the money. Oh, and on top of all that, this was also coincidentally the day where Damon was about to find out that Ash Lviv wasn't going to be fully clothed all the time in his house any longer. So there was that too. Clearly, it was not just old names and the past that was about to get dropped in front of Damon. Ash? Damon futilely tried again. But by this point, Damon knew that yes, of course she was awake, and no, she was not going to answer him, save the whole place, the whole flipping world was on fire, because nobody could hold a grudge like Ash Lviv, whether she lived rent-free or not. Damon let out a sigh, rolling his eyes, while slowly walking down the hallway leading to his den. His all but overtaken, once customized, sun-proof den. Once long ago, this was where Damon had gone to play digital pinball and watch some movies on a big, gaudy, orange-red 70s Ashley's couch that laid on top of a magnificently groomed yellow shag carpet that was entirely surrounded by nothing but beautiful walls of vintage wood paneling, with not a window in sight. But that was, of course, before last winter, when Ash had just randomly showed up in the middle of a blizzard. "Ash Lviv," Damon said, both politely and irritably at the same time while knocking on the door before entering his once mighty den. "Rise and shine, you lazy pussy cat." And what Damon saw lying before him on his couch was enough to make him freeze in place quicker than anyone dumb enough to talk smack about Medusa at the next Greek mythology reunion. Was all he could manage to get out. Laying before Damon in his filthy den, his utterly all but overtaken filthy den, a den that had been periodically, slowly, and methodically covered corner to corner in endless tissue boxes, ripped paperbacks, broken thigh masters, torn pantyhose, office skirts that had never even seen the inside of an office, half-eaten bags of Saratoga chips, skincare products for when somebody actually had skin to put it on, skim milk-stained plastic cereal bowls, and an electric keyboard Damon had never even seen her play, and clothes, mountains and mountains of dirty clothes. Laying before Damon on his couch without a care or a wink of sleep in the world, lay what can only be described as a perfectly preserved, almost completely nude specimen of the Werecat female form. Furry curves and all, bumpers and flippers exposed, while seeming to nonchalantly flip through menus upon endless Netflix menus, barely even seeming to notice that Damon was there at all. For the second time in so many hours, Damon's jaw dropped, and his eyes opened wider than old-school coffins, as he suddenly found himself slipping into what could only be described as a furry's ultimate wet dream, or that of James Cameron's Where Ash Lviv's Fur Blew. The dream come true of any and all misguided youth who had ever successfully secretly jacked off to Disney's animated version of Robin Hood, or that bunny from Space Jams. Sex and fury fantasy lay before Damon as visions of at least a dozen 70s and 80s, scantily clad, sex-soaked back glasses began racing into his view. Paragon and Viper, Matahari, Genie, Pink Panther, Stargazer, all of which involved the combining of fantasy along with a man's most favorite parts of the female anatomy. Hard bodies, hard bodies, hard bodies! Damon's mind began racing and screaming. After all, when was the last time Damon had seen a naked werecat before? Or a naked anything, for that matter? Kurt Cobain still being alive really was a long dry spell, wasn't it? Was Ash Lviv trying to tell him something here? Was she looking for something to stream other than Netflix? Was she looking to see if Damon's uncle wasn't the only one in the family famous for impalement? Wait, was she wearing his flipping bathrobe? His brand new, recently purchased and delivered, barely worn and still almost baby new cashmere bathrobe? Is that my flipping bathrobe, you fluffy bitch? Damon finally erupted, breaking out of his juvenile and erotic furry trance. What the hell are you doing in my bathrobe? Had Ash Lviv been going in his fucking closet again? That damn robe is so expensive, he could have bought a Big Bang bar for it instead. Huh? Ash Lviv said, seeming to barely notice the little prick, breaking out of a little trance of her own. Hey, you know, I think I finally just watched all of Netflix today, Ash said, as if she was completely unaware of how pre-Fig Leaf, Adam and Eve exposed she really was. You think they give medals for that or something? You're getting fur all over the inside of my newly imported bathrobe. What the heck are you doing sitting there naked in my bathrobe? And as much as Damon would have hated to admit it, for a moment he most certainly sounded a whole lot like Uncle Dear indeed. Well, how the heck could I be naked, dude, if I'm wearing a bathrobe? Ash Lviv retorted while turning her attention back to some streaming Netflix show called Puffin' Rock. Ash Lviv, because I can clearly see all of your... I mean, I guess technically you are right, Ash Lviv interrupted, giving herself a look up and down, fully noticing and aware that the robe was barely covering anything at all, because it's not like you ever see anyone walking around town wearing nothing but an open bathrobe, but I don't know if it legally qualifies as naked. I mean, if I'm wearing a bathrobe, then by definition, how am I naked? Oh, so now you're a legal scholar? Ash Lviv couldn't get through a Bazooka Joe comic, let alone an episode of Law and Order. A second ago, Damon was about to fuck her. Now he wanted to kill her. How was it that those two things were always a stone throw away from each other? Whose bright idea was that? I think bathrobes are the only piece of clothing in history where when you wear them, you're never truly naked and you're never truly clothed. Kind of like how you, Damon. How you are never truly alive and you're never truly dead. You undead scum. And Damon's coffin eyes exploded wide, revealing nothing beneath but hell fire. Ashleviv officially had only 5 seconds to live. I'm clearly not fully naked, Damon, because as you can clearly see, I'm still wearing. But this was the point where Ashleviv's argument and voice finally trailed off, because this was finally the moment where she finally realized that past her furry brown breasts and navel, there was virtually no panty line to speak of whatsoever, because how can you possibly have a panty line if you are not even wearing any? Yeah, I'll go cover up, she finally conceded, finally getting up and nonchalantly walking past a fuming Damon. Have you been drinking goat's blood again? Damon shouted and cursed. It was the only thing he could think of to say. Not a chupacabra, she responded, then turning around on a dime and deciding to unrobe and unceremoniously hand it back to Damon, now undeniably and inarguably fully naked, and saying, I'm gonna go take a shower, leaving Damon alone with his sullied rage, robe, choked screams, raging bile duct, along with a grinning Akita dog, who, if now could say something, talk, or be understood, would most certainly be trying to communicate. I tried to tell you, brah. I fluffy tried to tell you. Looking at his Akita, Damon's face cooled. He looked at his beyond filthy, opposite of pristine, milk and cereal stained and caked with fur cashmere bathrobe, and then he looked back to his Akita dog. Well, at least I see what got your panties in a twist today, Damon said, offering his favorite beast on the planet a conciliatory pat. In an old farmhouse kitchen, where the look hadn't changed since JFK had gotten his brains blown out, from the black and white checkered linoleum floor to the round, almost egg-shaped white refrigerator with a latching handle that would almost guarantee certain doom for any dumb fat kid in the 50s playing hide-and-seek in a landfill somewhere or someplace he was not supposed to be, to the flimsy galvanized metal U-shaped legs that held up Damon's flimsy square black kitchen table. Damon stared down at his barely touched and almost completely devoid of marshmallows bowl of unlucky charms, and back at the now showered and fully clothed, though braless, Forever 21 Werecat sitting across from him. No jury in the world would convict me, Damon thought to himself. No veterinarian in the cosmos would fault me for putting Ashleviv to sleep. Ashleviv, I'm going to need you to give me a ride after breakfast today, okay? Which, to Damon's eternal joy, made Ashleviv's cereal spoon fall with a noticeable clang and splash into her cereal bowl, almost sounding like a tuning fork as it did. What? You what? Ashleviv stammered, and Damon was now grinning ear to ear. Now it was her turn to get wide-eyed and get something of a little shock. Yeah, Damon said. I am going to need you to give me a ride after we've both finished our mysteriously devoid of marshmallows bowl of Lucky Charms. You can't be serious, Damon. In an instant, Ashleviv's many decades worth of calcified apathy and indifference seemed to crack and crumble, momentarily revealing for the briefest of glimpses what can only be described as highly functioning depression. Oh, I am serious. Bet you wish you stayed out of my fucking closet, Damon thought. Are you crazy? Ashleviv stammered, but Damon's look conveyed to her that no, he was anything but. This is messed up, Damon. Do you eat ice cream in front of diabetics? Wait, what? Do you like dancing the cha-cha-cha in front of quadriplegics? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that Stephen Hawking guy? 'Cause clearly you should know that it is very cruel to even suggest to me that we go out driving when you know that for the next 6 days, I thought it was 14, I'll still be stuck in here looking like this. Damon rolled his eyes. That's a very nice impression, Ash, of the black guy from the Pulp Fiction movies, but they only made one, she interjected without skipping a beat. What? One. They only made one, Damon. You said Pulp Fiction movies. It's not a bunch of movies. It's just one movie with a bunch of stories in it. I thought it was a trilogy this entire time, Damon thought. Like that Trek Wars thing. Listen to me, you over-semantic cereal box and bathrobe desecrating bitch. Don't you hiss at me. Don't you hiss at me, Ash. Ash, I'm telling you, I need a ride. Damon dipped his left hand into his cereal bowl and flicked some milk droplets at her. Power of Christ compels you, bitch. I'm fine with you staying here as long as you want, you scratch ticket fiend. I'm fine with you essentially ruining my den forever. I'm fine with needing at least a gallon of Drano every week, just to keep my showers and sinks running. And I'm even fine with you taking my stuff without asking, and even eating the better parts of all my cereal. But what I'm not fine with is on the rare occasions where I actually need help from you, you turn me down? Don't you think I'd like to go out? Ash cursed, revealing her claws and a voice that could cut even deeper. Don't you think I dream about such a thing every single day? Simply being able to go out whenever I want? Especially on a summer day like this, without having to worry about pitchforks and torches and all that. Nobody has pitchforks and torches anymore, Ash, Damon said, almost conciliatory. No. These days they have cell phones and laser cannons. Laser cannons. Damon almost wanted to laugh, but instead opted for letting his face lighten up a bit. Well, what if I were to tell you, dearie dear, that there's a foolproof plan where we could both go out today almost exactly as we are? For once, you could go out looking exactly as you are, and none would be the wiser. Which was enough for Ash Leviv's ears to perk up, and for her to catch her own tongue for once. We could pick up coffee and egg sandwiches, and even Brooks' Chicken for lunch on the way back. Brooks' Chicken, we're going to Oneana? Hell no, we're going to Long Lake. I looked it up. Some church parking lot will be serving Brooks on the way back today. And Ash Leviv gave him a look. Well, either way, I'd say you're a crazy person. Just what the hell do we tell the local sheriffs or constables just as soon as we get pulled over? Cops, Ash Leviv. They're called cops. The word you are looking for these days is cops. And drumroll please, 2 words, Ash. Cosplay. Cosplay. Cosplay? Oh, you know. All those nerd conventions all the weaker humans go to these days. Due to capitalism, communism, and the modern industrial system reducing them all into nothing more than perpetually dependent, plastic toy hoarding children, still incapable of coping with their parents' many divorces. Damon, for the last time, nobody thinks you're smart. Can you get to the point? Costumes, Ash. Everyone at these things go dressed up in costumes. All kinds of crazy stuff. And you see them out on the road all the time and nobody bats an eye. So you're going to dress me up? No, I'm going to dress myself up, Damon said rather excitedly indeed, getting up and pressing his middle fingers to his thumbs as he did. I am going to make myself look like a werecat. You're going to make yourself look like a werecat, she said, starting to sound bemused, as if that alone would make the trip worth it. Yes, we're just a couple of humans still coping with our parents' many divorces and failing YouTube channel, all dressed up, simply picking up a pinball machine on our way to the comic convention. A pinball machine! Ash Leviv erupted, slamming the table down hard until cereal milk splashed on Damon's shirt and face. You're telling me that you are actually going out in the daylight and even picking up Brooks' Chicken at a flipping church parking lot for another flipping pin? Who the hell is the real child here, Damon? They're not toys, Damon shouted back. They're so expensive, high maintenance, and uncommunicative, he blurted out. They're practically girlfriends. A funny joke indeed, but what exactly did that say about Damon, aka Mr. Dryspell? Plus, we're not just talking a pin, Ash. We're talking a free pin, as in $0 and 0 cents. If I can just pick it up today. And that's a deal I can't pass up. All you gotta do is drive me an hour and change there, an hour and change back, and we'll be back before tea time. Or before the sun puts me into an undead coma. Plus, did I also mention that I'm taking you out on a date next time you pass for human? A date, Ash said, looking and sounding very unimpressed. Yeah, a date. I'm talking salsa dancing and paella in downtown Saratoga town. What do you say? I'd say you hate Saratoga. Yes, I most certainly do, especially during the summer. I'd say you call that place overly snobby because it deep down reminds you how deep down overly snobby you really are, Mr. Cashmere Bathrobe. I don't recall ever saying that, but I'll roll with it today, Damon said. Yeah, you're just a big old snobby snob who thinks you're too good for scratch tickets and horse races and robbing Salvation Armies. So let me get this straight, Damon. And Ash Leviv paused. She had that look on her face that Damon always hated. That look before she pounced. Let me get this straight. You want to go out today during the day. You want me to drive you looking like this, she said, pointing to herself while giving her chest a little shake. You are going to dress and make yourself up so that you look like a werecat. A male one, I'm assuming. You're going to risk bursting into flames at a church parking lot just to get some brooks. And you're also going to take me out for dinner and dancing when the best I ever seem to get out of you is taco truck. At this, Damon could say nothing but scowl. Wow, you must really want this pin, Damon, Ash Lviv accused rather saucily indeed. Yeah. Damon knew he was cornered and he absolutely hated it. You must really, really want this pin badly. So tell me, Damon, Ash Lviv said, revealing that there are many types of claws in the world indeed. Tell me, Damon, exactly what pin are we picking up today? Damon's face turned completely white, whiter than usual, at least. He swallowed hard, opened his mouth, and said, well, actually, Ash, it's a... And Ash Lviv laughed and laughed and laughed. Frosted lucky werecats, they're tragically malicious.
You got the mic.
No way.
Get ready for battle.
Give me your money.
Keep it like night.